Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm Representative Mike Merwicki of Putney and the Wyndham 4 District, which includes Putney, Dummerston, and Westminster. Today we're doing a little bit of a different show. This is an issue show, an issue that is a concern to our district, to our town, our state, and our country. Today we're going to be looking at the issue of obesity and how it affects us individually, families, communities. We have a special guest today, Dr. John Bookwalter. Thank you so much for coming in, John.
My pleasure, Mike.
Yeah. One of the things that we're doing moving ahead with health reform is trying to move ahead with our preventive efforts. One of the things that keeps rising up on the charts is obesity in adults, growing problem of obesity in children. For people who are not aware, what is the problem? What's the scope of the problem?
Well, the problem, Mike, is that obesity is increasing almost exponentially, it seems, in our country, and it's associated with an increased incidence of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and joint disease. The problem with the physicians is that they're waiting until these situations occur before they're intervening, and I think this is as an important area in which the medical community, everybody, should be intervening. I think it's as important in 2012 as the vaccinations were back before there were any. And that's a preventive thing. We've all got our issues about the vaccines, but I think everybody's glad that they didn't get smallpox. Now, obesity is a lot easier to prevent than to treat. So if we can get the young people thinking about it, just as it's easier not to start smoking than to stop, not to start drinking binge-wise, but not to do it at all, it's just a better deal. And so as awareness is becoming greater about this, and as we're walking around and seeing the girth of the people of our country increase in a way that is detrimental to their health, we got to do something.
Yeah. When did this reach epidemic proportions? What's the evolution of the obesity epidemic?
I think we're going to have a graphic that's available from the Center for Disease Control, and if you go to their website and click on data and statistics for professionals, you'll find a map that starts in 1985. We weren't really measuring obesity until 1985, and then gradually every state has increased the percentage of people who are defined as being obese, and the technical definition of that is a body mass index of greater than 30. Now, you can go to any computer and say BMI, and then they'll put in your height and weight, and it will be calculated. But the simple definition of it is, in the metric system, is your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. Pretty simple, but when you start converting those data to the English system, you got some extra fudge factors in there, so it's better to just go and look it up. If you're around 25, I'm about 25. What are you, Mike? What's your BMI?
I think I'm around 30.
Well, you're not looking too bad for a guy with a BMI of 30. One of the problems with the BMI is that bodybuilders are often touted as being obese, and an alternate measurement that everybody can do is to take your height in inches and your maximum girth at your waist, and then divide the waist measurement into your height. It shouldn't be greater than 0.5. 34-inch waist, you should not be, you got to be taller than 5'8" to carry that kind of waist, or you're in trouble. And that's a pretty simple thing to do, but just look around and see what's going on. And it is not treating your body with respect to carry that extra weight around. You're just asking for trouble down the line, sooner rather than later.
Is it that people are not eating portions that are reasonable? Is it that they're not exercising? Is it that they're not eating the right foods? All of the above?
Probably a combination. Gene Mayer, who was at Tufts University in the 60s, was saying nobody is active anymore. We're not walking, we're driving, and that's gotten worse. Our caloric intake has gone up about 1,000 calories per person over the last 25 years. And one of the reasons for that is the skill and dexterity of the food and beverage manufacturers. They have no stake in how we look. They just want to reward their shareholders with good returns. And how's the best way to get somebody to eat something? You've got to make it taste good. That's a little extra fat, some salt, and some sugar. Those are the key ingredients. And we have to educate our young people to say some of this stuff's not so good for you.
Our former Surgeon General, Dr. Kessler, has a book out about this, and he talks about that dynamic of the fat, salt, and sugar combination, and how many foods, and then the portions, the supersizing of portions.
That's another, the portions are pretty big. It's kind of tough sometimes. You wind up going out to dinner and having a couple of appetizers because you don't like leaving food on the plate. Yeah. And if you're not used to what they're trying to entice you to their restaurant to do, it's not so good.
Now, one of the things I've been aware of, and the changes that I've made is in regards to intake of carbohydrates, limiting simple carbohydrates and focusing on complex. And what that means is not eating white flour, refined sugar. I use whole wheat flour. I use stevia as a sweetener.
I'm impressed.
And then sticking to a diet which is basically vegetables, fruit, and protein. It seems to be the way we used to eat, but we've gotten away from that.
Yes, we have gotten away from it. And I think the glycemic index is how quickly a sugar is absorbed in your body. What happens when you get extra carbohydrates? Your body takes up as many of them. There's some storage in the muscles, some storage in the liver, and then the rest of them are converted to something called triglycerides, which are made into fat. Which is mobilized when your blood sugar doesn't replenish enough, and that's another alternative way to get energy. But you don't like it as much. The body doesn't like to use it as much as it likes to use sugar. So that if you can get the right kind of carbohydrates, that's the best. That's the best situation.
I think it was explained to me that the complex carbohydrates, the good oils, the omega-3 oils, the body burns those. Sugars, white flour, the body stores those.
Well, that's because it's made available so fast that it overwhelms the storage capability. Plus, let's be honest, Mike, what's our government subsidizing? Corn and wheat. And these are products that are inexpensive. We're thinking in terms of alleviating world starvation. Earl Butz, Eisenhower's Secretary of Agriculture, put this very high on his agenda of bread basket for the world. And we've done that, but we've done such a good job that we're eating too much. We're eating too much.
How's Vermont doing with this?
Vermont's one of the better states. Our percentage of people, according to this Center for Disease Control data, is 23.2% of our population is technically obese. That's with a body mass index of greater than 30. Not good. And it's risen, but it's not nearly as bad as the South. Which is many people over, I believe, over 30%. That's a huge number of people that are able to do this. Not cool.
Now, one of the concerns many of us have is that we're seeing more and more children showing up obese with what used to be called adult-onset diabetes. What's happening to them? What's happening to their insulin process?
Well, I don't think that the general population has a good handle on this. But in my heart, I feel that as our women have moved into the workforce toward well-deserved equality as income producers for the family, It's not like they're sitting home and planning good meals for everybody all day. There's a lot more food that's bought in from the outside, already prepared. And I feel that the kids are exposed to a lot of fast food, which has a huge number of calories. Now, the fact that you're being required to put the number of calories on food, I think that's a plus, and I think we can do it. But the sooner that you start working with a child that looks like they're having a weight problem, the better for them. As you and I were talking earlier, you can't put diesel fuel in a regular car, and you can't put gasoline in a diesel engine car. They're not made for it. And some people can handle large amounts of simple carbohydrates, and other people can't. They can't do it. And you have to find out what's best for you and then what's best for your body, because you're not your best self when you're overweight.
What about physical activity? How much should the average child be undertaking? How about adults?
I think physical activity is great. The latest buzz in that is that the slow running and the jogging and stuff doesn't burn many calories. And that interval training, where you speed up and then go slowly for a while, winds up burning more energy because you're still burning calories after you're done running. I think of walks and slow jogging as something you do for mental tranquility rather than to get your body in condition, in honesty.
I've taken to bicycling. And of course,
dangerous sport. All my friends have been whacked somehow. I mean, it'd be nice if we treated this, but where we live in Putney, there's a pretty steep drop off on some of those roads. Is it worth it to try and make our roads safer for bicycling? I think so. But hard to allocate the money in these troubled times.
Well, it is something we are working on to make it safer for pedestrians and bicyclers. And one of the things I appreciate about Vermont, though, is there's no free ride here when you're bicycling. And I tend to stay on the back roads, so there's not much traffic, but you have to get up the hills, and there's only one way to do that.
Get off the bike and walk beside it. That's the way some of us have to do it.
I find it's a great low impact.
Yes.
Because
well, I can exercise, bike, rowing, any of those things that aren't highly stressful. It's the competitive exercises that often you wind up with a sprained ankle or a shoulder injury or something like that you wish that you'd thought of some other way to get your activity.
What about our kids?
Well, it's tougher than it used to be. I mean, you and I were playing in the street and nobody was worried that we were going to get abducted or abused or anything else. And now there's a lot more of a protective shield around them, and sometimes it's not to their best advantage. But then you have a bad event and everybody gets worried again. It's a heartbreak in many ways.
I know I was talking with another Putney neighbor of ours, John Caldwell, who's he's on a committee the governor appointed him to on physical fitness and trying to get schools to require an hour a day of exercise. And I know in the schedule it's tough.
Get kids stacking wood. I mean, that's pretty good exercise. Johnny was always a big wood stacker because he said, you're moving everything doing that. When you're doing these ritualistic exercises in the weight room, he says, you're not doing your stabilizing kinds of exercises. And he should know. I look at my friends in his age group, though. How many of those guys have had to have joint surgery to keep going? And is there something we could have done differently in their physical activity? A lot of people, 40s and 50s, working out hard, and then something happens and they sort of run out of gas, or they're crippled in a sense. So everything is a kind of a balancing act.
Do you think our kids are getting enough exercise, though?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't want to say really, because you look at your own kids, you say, well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, one kid's an airplane pilot, the other is a horseback rider. Who knows?
Should kids be getting more exercise than adults?
Well, I don't think you can get enough exercise. The kids are always worried about, I've just settled down, And one way to not get in trouble is to be tired. That to me is a kind of a no-brainer. I think that's great. I think, how do we do that? I saw in the paper today that we got such a low grade, or was it yesterday, for our schools. Yeah. Was that because of our physical activity, or was that some other screwball measurement?
I think that's a whole nother show we can do about how the No Child Left Behind law was set up in two ways, I think. First of all, it puts all scores together. It's like having the Olympics, asking the Special Olympics to compete with regular Olympians, and then wondering why they're not keeping up. The other thing is, each year the bar keeps getting raised higher, and like I said, that's another show.
I'd love to come on and talk about that, because my wife is interested in helping kids with learning differences. Yeah. And these kids, many of them have real talent. Yeah. They're pounded down because they're not measuring up in something that the school wants you to do well in. Yeah. Not correct.
Yeah. Back to the obesity piece.
Back to the obesity.
What can we be doing now as individuals, families, communities, the legislature? What do you see as the next steps here?
I think the best thing we can do is to start saying and popularizing the data that's coming out of the CDC. Start making some public service announcements on the fact that diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and joint disease are all coming on earlier in obese people, and they're not living as long. One thing, the way Americans respond to their pocketbook, I would honestly, if somebody is overweight, I would make them pay more for their health insurance. However that could be done, probably not good. But I think once Americans realize that they can save money by being thin, or not fat, let's not say thin, that there's huge opportunity there for people to do what's right and save some money in the process. And it used to be that only that the poor were thin, and now people in the bottom income brackets, partly because of the subsidy, but partly because they're misled, are eating junk instead of what's good for them. But there's cheap stuff. The whey protein isolates, things like that. You can get a lot of good protein. You can get meal replacements. You can do this on a budget. You don't have to be spending a lot of money on that. You can, but it's possible to do well. And look around. There's some guys in this town that are doing a great job with handling patients with weight, and some people, I think, that are doing a great job on their own.
What about the legislature?
Well, that's hard to know about what they can do. It's hard to know how to balance the right of people to do what they want. My hope is that if people know what the right thing to do, that's one thing. And then I think the power of taxation is another.
We have talked about a soda tax.
Well, I think that's too narrow. And I think that the soda people are responding by using artificial sweeteners, which I don't think are as bad as some people do. I think there are, of course, the people with phenylketonuria, a pretty small percentage that shouldn't have aspartame. But Splenda is just a sugar molecule with some chlorine atoms replacing a hydroxyl. I just don't seem to think that that's too bad. And as you mentioned, the stevia, that's not bad either. Anything that works for you that cuts down the consumption of this, because there's sugar everywhere.
Do you see soda specifically as a contributor to the problem?
Well, it probably has been, but it doesn't have to be. And as one person decides, hey, how many people do you know that are drinking 6 cans of soda a day? That would do it. All by itself. But if you're substituting some diet soda for that, it doesn't matter. Then maybe you're going to switch to water. I think one thing that's as bad as soda is fruit juice. These processed fruit juices can really do it to you.
If you look at the labels, they have a lot of corn syrup in them.
You know, an interesting thing about corn syrup, Mike, is that it's only 60% fructose. When they say high fructose corn syrup, like it was the worst thing in the world. And table sugar is 50%. Now, that extra 10% of fructose means that the soda people, it's sweeter. Ounce for gram, that stuff is sweeter. So that's kind of a cop-out to say high fructose corn syrup is bad. It's bad if you eat any kind of sugar. in that volume. And if you get used to it so that you like it, you're really in trouble.
But I think it's in more juices than people know about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The best drink is water.
Water.
And then second for me is coffee.
Yeah.
And third is skim milk.
Well, I'm an iced tea drinker.
Iced tea, you're allowed to have iced tea. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. Well, before we close, I appreciate your time here today. Anything else you want to share with the viewers?
No, I think you've sucked it all out of me,
Well,
Mike. We'll do it again sometime, and if we come up with some ideas again, or get some other people in here to talk about it, might be worthwhile.
Well, I appreciate your work. I appreciate your lifetime of work in medicine, dedicated to the community, and helping raise the educational quotient here for people to have a greater awareness of how we can affect our health, and how this problem is a growing problem that we need to address as individuals, families, communities, and as a state.
It's a personal problem. It's not something that the doctor is going to. What's the doctor going to say? Eat a healthy diet and get plenty of exercise.
Yeah.
And where does that take you? Not very far down the road to getting healthier. You got to get some specific ideas. I don't think you need to have medicines to do it. I think you can do it. There are all these meal replacement powders. And one other thing, you got to get enough fiber.
Yeah.
Our food is so processed that we're not getting enough fiber, and that's another thing that slows absorption, slows the rise of blood sugar, and cuts down the rate of colon cancer.
So that's fruits and vegetables.
Sure, fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, on that note, fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables, meat, a little meat.
Yeah, good proteins. I appreciate your time today, John, and thank you for your work.
My pleasure. We'll be together, Mike.
Right.
Thanks for your good work.
All right. And thank you again, and thanks to the people here at BCTV for making this possible and bringing issues to you at home. This is Mike Merwicki. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.